G'day and welcome back to the channel. I'd hoped to be bringing you a good news video today, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's now, what is the time? It is now almost 8:30 in the morning here in New Zealand. I have exchanged emails with CAA yesterday, trying to get some resolution to some of the issues that are outstanding at the moment. And I once again made an offer to CAA to try and resolve this whole thing out of the public eye. I mean, I'm not here to make CAA look bad. I'm here to try and achieve a goal, and that is to get some justice, some sensibility, some pragmatism into this whole system. And so again, I made an offer to CAA through their executive, Dean Winter. I said, give me a ring, Dean. Give me a call before 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's not unreasonable to ask for a call before 8 in the morning, because on 2 occasions previously, CAA have called me well outside of normal office hours. In fact, 7:30 in the evening, I think it was, when their investigators were under stress and distressed because of the effects of social media. They were gravely concerned that their investigators were suffering stress because people were being mean to them. So CAA understand the issue of distressing people and how it's not a good thing, which is why I am still so very angry that they've chosen to bring stress and distress upon 2 14-year-old boys and their families for no good reason. And this speaks to the whole culture of CAA. There is an arrogance, there is a hypocrisy that I cannot abide. And I'd hoped I didn't have to make this video, because I would really like to work with CAA and, as I say, address the real issue, which is safety. Or is it safety? I have a feeling it is not safe. In the case of CAA, we're not talking safety anymore. We're not talking safety anymore. This is way beyond that. And as I say, we've got a culture issue. There's a real culture issue. And it's not the first culture issue that CAA has faced. Recently, they got slammed for bullying. The media was full of reports. There was a ministerial inquiry. Heads rolled at the highest level because it was a culture of bullying within the Civil Aviation Authority. I don't think that culture's gone away. I think that culture may have been internalized before, but now they're bullying other people. I mean, they tried to bully me over the situation with their investigators. They made it very clear, we know what sort of person you are. If you won't call off these people on social media, we know what sort of person you are, they said to me. It's just not satisfactory. And now they're picking on 2 14-year-old boys because they couldn't be bothered doing a little bit of homework to establish the veracity of a complaint made by some person or persons unnamed. It's incompetence. It's laziness, it's arrogance, it's hubris, and it's not good enough. That's why I'm making this video. Now, as I say, I offered the olive branch to CAA. Let's get this sorted behind the scenes. Let's focus on the goal. Apparently that's not good enough. They're not focused on the goal. They're more concerned about I don't know what. So here we are. And as I've said many times before, I don't go off on these things half-cocked. I always have a strategy. I always have a plan. And I do have a plan in this case. We have an election coming up here in New Zealand. In the next few weeks, we all go to the polls and we vote. And as I think most people know, this is about the only time in an electoral term when politicians are actually listening to the people. I don't hold politicians in very high regard. And my recent interactions with the Minister of Transport, to whom CAA report, have validated that belief. Mr. Phil Twyford is the Minister of Transport. He was the guy that said, oh, all you've got to do is start a petition with CAA to have a rule change. He hadn't even bothered checking that this had already been tried, and that petition magically disappeared from the CAA system. Yeah, how does that work? A system that they can do whatever they like with is not going to be effective, but he didn't check on that, and he's dismissed the whole thing. And Mr. Twyford also has a very poor track record in other portfolios he's been involved in, such as housing. So he's not an effective politician. So we're going to take it to the top. We're going to go to the top. I'm going to contact our Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. Now, she's achieved worldwide praise for her handling of a number of very, very difficult situations. We had the unfortunate terrorist incident in the South Island of New Zealand, Christchurch, which resulted in the loss of life, and it was tragic. She handled that extremely well. And we've recently had the COVID-19 situation here in New Zealand, which has also been handled extremely well and saved many lives in this country. She is very good at what she does. Now, I'm hoping that her compassion and her abilities will be extended on this occasion to deal with an agency of her government that is performing to an unacceptable level. And to summarise my past 24 hours of recent experience with CAA, as regular viewers to this channel will know, they investigated me and then they violated my privacy by sending personal information to an unrelated third party, which I find, again, I spoke about hypocrisy. There is so much hypocrisy here, because when I inquired about this case involving the two boys, I got an email back yesterday from Mr. Dean Winter of CAA basically saying, piss off, the complaint isn't about you. It's Privacy Act. We can't disclose it because Privacy Act. You're not mentioned in the complaint, so we can't tell you much because of the Privacy Act. So he was holding up this get out of jail free card that government agencies use so often. Oh, we cannot tell you anything because of the Privacy Act. So that you think, they hold the Privacy Act in great esteem, don't they? Yet, when they violated the Privacy Act by sending my personal information to an unrelated third party because they couldn't even be bothered checking their records, laziness, incompetence, and establishing my address, that didn't seem to matter. They use the Privacy Act when it suits them, but they'll ignore it when it suits them. And it's not the only Act of Parliament they've ignored in respect to me. 2 months ago, I filed an Official Information Act request, which is something that can be done by Act of Parliament. I can request information from any government department. They have 20 working days to respond. On the 39th working day after my request, I received a reply. That's right, they were supposed to have 20 working days. They took 39, or they took 40 days. It was the 40th day after my request they replied. So they way in excess of what the Act allows, but hey, we only enforce rules, we don't follow them, seems to be the mantra at CAA, hypocrisy again. They responded to me saying, yes, we've decided to comply with the Act. Well, thank you, you didn't really have an option. You have to comply with the Act. It's an Act of Parliament. But it's like this hubris that we're the CAA, don't you know who we are? You know, we don't, as I say, we don't follow rules, we enforce rules, and that is unacceptable. But again, the standards at CAA are appalling. As I said, they sent my personal details to an unrelated third party because they couldn't even be bothered looking up my address in the phone book or the electoral register. And in the case of their response to my Official Information Act request, they didn't even get my name right. And it's not like I'm unknown to CAA. And is it a big thing? Well, first of all, it is a courtesy to get somebody's name right. And perhaps to deliberately get it wrong is just one way of having a bit of a dig. I don't know. What can I say? I can't draw any implications from it, but at the very least, laziness, incompetence. These are the two things that seem to be showing up an awful lot in my dealings with CAA. So they're supposed to provide me with that information today, but I expect a great deal of it will have been redacted. And I wondered why the other two investigations that are taking place against videos posted to my YouTube channel, I wondered why they hadn't been resolved, and now I know. Because they reserve the right to withhold information that may be affecting any current investigation. So by always having an investigation on the register against me, they can hold back a lot of information. But again, these investigations were started months ago. Laziness, incompetence. Why aren't they finished? Laziness, incompetence. It's all I can think of. So, as a taxpayer, I expect to get a lot more for my money than simply laziness, incompetence, and arrogance, because we're seeing arrogance now. The case of the two boys, as I pointed out in a previous video, they did absolutely nothing wrong. And I related that to CAA. And I was shocked to hear yesterday that an investigator was due to visit these boys. So, CAA did not even establish the veracity of the complaint before they put them under investigation. And for a 14-year-old boy, being investigated by an agency of the state is a very big thing. And for their family, it's a very big thing. It's stress. It's distress. Oh my goodness. The very things that CAA were so upset about when their own investigators were being criticised on social media. Yet they're happy to do that to two 14-year-old boys and their families. Hypocrisy. Remember I mentioned hypocrisy? It is rampant in this organisation. Do as we say, not as we do. And that is not good enough. So now we have a situation where the boy's under investigation. An investigator was supposed to turn up and interview one of the boys. He didn't even show. He didn't even turn up. He failed to honour the appointment. Laziness, incompetence. Again, it's not like it's a one-off. It's not like there's just been a couple of little stuff-ups. This is an ongoing systematic failure within this organisation. They're lazy, they're incompetent, they're arrogant, and they're hypocritical. I don't think that is satisfactory in the least. And that's why we're talking to the Prime Minister about this. And finally, the thing that really puts the nail in the coffin, I did get a response from Dean Winter, and he said, I think having realised what a giant stuff-up they'd made in the case of these two boys, he said, basically, we're not going to take any action. We're going to treat this in an educative manner. It's going to be an educative process. What are you going to teach them? What education are you going to give them? They've done everything right. They broke no rules. They went above and beyond the the legislated needs to preserve safety. So what are you going to teach them? Because remember, CAA, I had to teach your investigators about the scope and the meaning of the very rules that they were trying to enforce when they investigated my videos. Your investigators didn't know the scope of your own regulations. So what are you going to teach these boys who've done everything right? What you're trying to say is, we really stuffed up, so we're going to try and spin this around and say, we're just going to educate the boys. They don't need educating, CAA. You need educating. You need new policies. You need a new culture. And you need to take some responsibility and stop being so damn hypocritical. That's what you need. And I intend to make sure that you get it. Now, as I say, in the past, CAA has been really, really told off for bad culture. Well, that persists. It persists. We've got the evidence. We've got the undeniable proof that that exists. Mr. Winter, I'm sorry, you're going to have to carry the can for this. The buck stops with you. If you think it's acceptable, all the things that have happened recently, if you think that's acceptable, you are not fit for the role you have at CAA. And so here is what we're going to do. And I already explained this to Mr. Winter, and I said, please get back to me. I would like to talk about this. The ball is in your court, Mr. Winter. And he chose not to return serve, so that's fine. So what we're going to do now, in the lead up to an election, is I'm going to try and talk to the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, to raise this issue and to get a resolution before the election, because once the election is passed, politicians' ears tend to close. They've got the power, they've got another term in government, they don't really care too much about what people think or what people say. So we're going to do this with some urgency. Get this done before the election. I want changes made before the election. And you might think, well, come on, you're just one guy. What power have you got? Why is the Prime Minister going to grant you an audience? You've got no show. Well, I think that would be a very dangerous assumption to make on the part of CAA, at least. I've drafted an email to Jacinda Ardern. I'll be sending it off shortly. And I'll be requesting a 15-minute conference with her to discuss these issues and to get some assurance that they will be addressed before the election. Not after, but before the election. And if that doesn't come to pass, if Jacinda is too busy, or if she chooses not to speak to me because she's got other priorities, then the next stage of the plan goes into effect. And what I'll be doing then, not now, don't do anything now, not yet, no, not yet. If I cannot arrange an audience with Ms. Ardern within the next day or two, I will be coming back doing another video in which I'll be inviting you to participate in this process. Because the very last thing any government wants in the lead up to election is the media asking questions about why one of their agencies is bullying 14-year-old boys just months after already being ripped a new one for a culture of bullying. Why has their government not been able to control this bullying issue with CAA? That will not look good in the lead up to an election, especially when the minister has done nothing. So the ball will be in Jacinda's court. Now, she can choose to talk to me off the record, quietly behind closed doors, and sort this whole thing out without a massive public spectacle. Or if she's too busy, or she chooses not to, then I will be getting people to email her directly, because her email address is readily available, and to CC the media on this. The newspapers, the television stations. Because I'm pretty sure that in the lead up to an election, the media want to know exactly what's going on. And we're talking modern mainstream media. They love publishing stories that rake up the dirt on politicians. And I think we've got a pretty damn good story here. So as I say, I don't want to do this. This is not my goal. And I certainly don't want anybody doing anything yet, because I would hate for my individual email to the Prime Minister to get lost in the noise of thousands of other emails from around the world. It's essential that my email is received and considered before we do anything else, because hopefully we won't have to do anything else. My goal is not to make CAA look bad. And to be honest, they don't need my help. They do it all by themselves. They're very good at looking bad, because laziness, incompetence, arrogance, hypocrisy. That's why they look bad, repeatedly. And choosing to disobey acts of Parliament. That doesn't put them in a good light. So that's where we're headed. I should not have to be doing this. I should not have to be strategizing and coming up with plans to make people just do their damn jobs properly. Do the jobs they're paid very handsomely for, and that they chose to take on. Mr. Winter, if you didn't want to do your job, you should not have applied for the position. That's all I can say. And to all the investigators, well, I know there are some investigators there, like Doug, who shouldn't be there. Really, unsuitable for that role. Unsuitable. Chris, the other investigator I spoke with, didn't seem like a bad sort of a guy. But Doug, sorry mate, you just don't cut it. So we need to get some sense into CAA, some common sense and pragmatism. Some focus on the goals. And what do I mean by focus on the goals? Well, everyone who watches this channel has seen this, right? And there are a lot of people who want to build one of these, and for good reason. It's a safety tool. It makes sure that we are protected from manned aviation, not the other way around. And I say not the other way around because we fly below 400 feet, so we should not have a problem with manned aviation. Manned aviation should be 500 feet and above. The fact that we need this speaks volumes to the lack of compliance on the part of manned aviation. We are constantly having to deal with aircraft flying below 500 feet in the airspace that we are entitled to use. Now, we've taken an initiative here. As a community, we've said, hey, we're prepared to spend our good money, our time, to come up with a proactive safety tool that will enhance the safety of the skies. Proactive, that's very important. We are acting in advance of the problem. We are preventing bad things from happening. It's not the same as regulation. Regulation does not stop bad things happening. If it did, there'd be no murders, no robberies, no rapes, no speeding. None of those bad things would happen. Regulation is simply a way of punishing people after bad things happen. And that's a retroactive, it's not a proactive thing, it's retroactive. It's after the event. Regulations have very little effect on modifying people's behaviour. Penalties and punishments do, but only after the effect. So what we've done is take a proactive stand on safety, and that should be something that you think CAA would be over the moon about. My goodness, you guys, you don't have a responsibility to do this, you don't have a legislative requirement to do this, but you on your own bat have decided to take the safety initiative. Fantastic. That's what I would be saying. If I was Dean Winter, I'd be over the moon right now saying, brilliant, this community is doing the right thing. Let me read a quote from an email he sent me after I pointed him at the ADSB alarm, some videos and news articles. This is what he said of the ADSB alarm. I don't feel that the use of this device should provide any perception that there would be less responsibility for adhering to current rules and maintaining safety. Yeah, as I said, the man's not fit for his role. Instead of embracing this and welcoming it and praising it, he's basically saying, well, you're just not going to follow the rules now, are you? Oh, good grief. Ms. Ardern will be hearing about my opinion of Mr. Winter. And I gave Mr. Winter adequate opportunity to redeem himself. I really did. I've asked Mr. Winter for CAA to give a formal written apology to these boys and their families for putting them under stress and in distress. Because if it's good enough for their investigators to be protected by CAA from stress and distress, why are they inflicting it on these kids who've done nothing wrong? Yeah, it's hypocrisy. There we go. I can't say much more at this stage. As I leave everything with me, I do have a plan. Don't upset it by jumping in half-cocked and sending off emails to people. We don't need that yet. We don't need that yet. I want to deal one-on-one with the Prime Minister. And if we can make that happen, problem is solved. If we can't make it happen, then we move to that next tier where you guys will be invited to participate in this thing. And it doesn't matter if you're here in New Zealand or if you're half a world away. This is an issue that affects the hobby worldwide. And I'm hoping that here in New Zealand we can make a stand and we can show the world that this hobby is not the evil thing that it's being portrayed to be. A little bit of information for you. I did some research. In the last 50 years, over 84,000 people have died as a result of manned aviation incidents. 84,000 people. During the same period, 8 people died as a result of model aircraft operations. 8 people. That's 1/10,000th the number who died in manned aviation incidents. And of those 8 deaths, not a single one was attributed to the recreational use of multi-rotor drones. So why is the regulator in New Zealand harassing kids that have done nothing wrong when every year in this country about 30 people die in manned aviation accidents? And if you look at CAA's own accident investigation reports, a dominant factor in many of those crashes is illegal flying below 500 feet. CAA, you're going for low-hanging fruit, you're not doing your job, you're not preserving safety, you are dysfunctional. Dean Winter, the blame is at your door because I've given you every opportunity to correct the situation, you've chosen not to. There we go, folks. To the commenting bit, I want to hear what you say. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going off half-cocked? I've got to say this has taken a bit of a toll at the moment. My Parkinson's is really bad. I have got very little sleep last night, but this isn't over. Until this is over, I'm sticking with it. We've got to see this through. It's the hobby at stake. It's the future enjoyment of generations at stake here. If we don't take a stand, if we don't make this stand, there'll be nothing for our children and our grandchildren to enjoy. The airspace will be the sole domain of Amazon and Google, and flying model aircraft will just be seen as one of those quaint little things that our grandparents did. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. You make it all possible. And thanks for everyone else that supports the channel. I very, very much value your support. Now, I've got to finish my email to the Prime Minister. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.